Alright, people, alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Ying Layth, bienvenidos a todos people بخير راغلي خوش آمدید and as always swagatam قد تأخرنا اليوم people, as always, I've got to keep people on edge, you see, that's why. Or is this just the story of my life, man? I don't know. One day, when I grow up, I'll be on time. Vamos a empezar, people. Let's begin. Let's get this show on the road. So, what is going down? First and foremost, let me just do a quick sound check, as always, an audio sound check. What's up, peeps? Alright, Mufti Zamzam says, your greeting. Yo, how you doing? Alright, look at that. Yo, how you doing? I'm doing okay, shukran. Mufti Abu Alfa YouTube. Hello, my people. All right. I love you all too, yaar. I love you all. So, what's going down? Sounds all good. Sound is banging. Fraudy of Rubbery says, sound is banging. It's not just good, it's banging. So, let's get this show on the road, people. Yeah, you know, with the time thing, Sid Khan, much love. You're doing it with the super chat. You know, with this timing thing, it's like, you know, the saying in Urdu that मैं देर करता नहीं, देर हो जाती है. You know, I've got a better one actually. John Ilya Sahib, where he says, that sums up my, my whole life events. He says, आदमी वक्त पर गया होगा, वक्त पहले गुजर गया होगा. He says, the person must have surely gone on time. It's just that the time went before him. Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. What's going down, mi gente? What's going down? So, I did make a note of a few things I want to discuss, just in case I forget. You know what it is? I get distracted. And today I was very, you're right. This is extraordinarily late. But I get distracted, and by the time I manage to, not that I get distracted from my show and from you awesome, wonderful people, Geo sub, it's just that I'm caught up, and by the time I manage to finish, anyway, what is time anyway, people? Is relevant. It's simply, it's an, one wonders, does it even exist as a phenomenon? You see, if you think about it, people, look, we view our lives, we perceive them in a forward-moving series of events. Okay, so we see this kind of like an there is this, we see A moving to B, moving to C, and the ever-present now seems to just move continuously forward. And the ever-present now a moment ago develops into the past. So we're moving, let's say, from this direction to this direction in a linear fashion. But if some entity, or let's say from another dimension, you're looking down now, to them, it's just all simply in front of them, in the ever-present now. Wah! Kamal hai. You guys are like, what on earth is he on about? So, let's get back to some questions. Sid Khan, you're doing it. Right. Ruby Red, is this guy an insomniac? I'm not an insomniac, but I am a vampire. I can say that much. Gori from Germany. Salamu alaikum. We're gonna speak about our Hazrat Khadim Hussain Rizvi Saab. Says hello, Gori aaya. Khadim Hussain Rizvi. Layth, how long is tonight's session? Layth. Acha. Hey, Layth. Hey, Layth. Acha. The over familiarity kind of. ये भी होता है, this. Let me tell you something. People. Sometimes I'll get messages and people will write to me. They'll kind of message me and all sorts. With social media, it's another problem I've been having is with my voice recently. Yeah, so social media is fine to some extent. You'll have a profile. So you can always identify, look at the face, think, oh yes, this person. But sometimes I'll just get a random message. See, somebody might just send me a text message or something like this, and I don't know who on earth they are. And the thing is this, that, people will just talk to me as if they absolutely know me, yeah? Now, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But they won't even really introduce themselves. They'll have this assumption that, like, okay, fair enough. Let's say they've watched a lot of me, so they feel kind of familiar with my, I don't know, they see me a lot, so they think that, like maybe, I don't know, this is two-way. like I don't know, maybe somehow I see them, or so when they'll message me, they'll just kind of just go on as if like we're really familiar, which isn't necessarily a problem. Depends. That depends. But that depends on my mood. But the other thing is that they don't introduce themselves, and they don't say who they are, and they don't say like how we know each other or anything. And I'll say, like, who is this? And they'll just introduce themselves by, like, let's just say they'll just say their name, like, it's Abdullah. I'll think, who the hell is that? So people, if you do ever reach out to me, always introduce yourself. Tell me a bit about yourself so I get to know who you are. It gives me, a better perspective, you see, on whether I want to invest my time in responding. Nah, I'm joking. Let's move on, people. What a week. What a week, people. So much going on. It began, I don't know if you guys remember the heat wave, which was killing me. Oh my God. I don't know. I'm not down with these kind of heat waves as a person, man. I just like the weather to be nice, bright, breeze, like a good breeze. I don't like this, you're sweating and all this kind of stuff. And it renders me redundant. Like, I just can't do anything. Like, I can't work. I just feel like so lethargic and like it's, But there was fires, internationally, right here in Birmingham, people, there were fires. It was just going, you had this, not quite with their priorities in place, but chalo theek hai. I also had a mind trap done last week, people, if you haven't caught up with that. That was with Bushra Sheikh from The Apprentice. You can watch that. It's on YouTube. Other than that, mi gente, let me just see. Oh, check this out. Those of you that have seen this, an Arab lady approaches I mean, in some supermarket somewhere in the Arab world. هذه بلد مسلم صح؟ أنت مسلم صح ولا لا؟ صح؟ أوف. بطة بطة. أوف. أوه. بقي الكبير. There you go. She's broken that too. Allah. قوة الإيمان, people. قوة الإيمان. That's إيمان. أيوه. بل فعله كبيرهم هذا. You're trying to reenact Abraham's story. You see, this had gone viral on social media. People were like, everybody was talking about it. So since everybody's talking about it, chalo hum bhi hain. Istoyaki people. I'm right here as well. So I've got to drop my, the two pence. As the saying goes, فَأَدْلِ دَلْوَكَ فِي الدِّلَاءِ. So that's in Arabic. So this lady, young or not so young, I can't tell, goes into this supermarket and has a taqwa attack. You have sometimes a heart attack, and some people, they have a taqwa attack. It's like, ooh. So her taqwa demands that how can these Hindu statues be sold in this Muslim country, whichever it is. I'm not sure what Muslim country it is. It may be in the Gulf state somewhere. And she sets about destroying them. I just want to say, this is so stupid, is utterly unacceptable. Okay. This, I don't know if she didn't realize, but that wasn't her dad's house. She's walked into a supermarket, which is private property. Then she's just, this is simply destruction of private property, of people, of just, even if it's another religion. First of all, it's not your assets to destroy. Secondly, to many people, that is sacred. Now, it may not be sacred to you, right? It may not be sacred to you, but it is sacred to many other people. Now, nobody's asking you to believe in Hinduism. Nobody's asking you to believe in these statues, that particular one, I think Ganesh. Nobody's asking you to believe in that. But to go destroying it as some kind of a threat to your iman, that my iman has become, this is hadha baladun Muslim. She keeps, is this not a Muslim country? Of course it's a Muslim country, but a Muslim country does not mean that Hindus can't go and buy their things of, of worship. In the time of the Prophet, in Arabia, there were Christians who would purchase the crucifix. Of course they would. They would purchase wine. They would purchase these things. They would sell these things. This was part and parcel of their religion. So if there's Hindus living in that country, whatever it is, they would probably want to purchase these idols. Obviously, these figures aren't just there for the fun of it. They're there to sell. So the person who's selling them is assuming they must be getting sold. So this is compound ignorance. And some people might argue, they might say, but Mufti, yahan pe, over here we catch you out, this hard. So how do they catch me out? They might say, but Ibrahim alayhi salam went and destroyed the statues. हाँ, ये तो है. Oof, toba, toba, toba. I better do toba. I got caught out. I didn't know you were going to come prepared. You see, well, my response to that would be, first of all, it would be, listen, you Johal. I mean, Jailo, like dumb and dumber. This is, first of all, if you know, I'll have you know, right, that when Abraham destroyed the statues, first of all, right, he was divinely instructed to do so. So let's go with, first of all, as just and then I'm going to come to the other point, right? He was a prophet of God, okay? So unless you're a prophet of God, and unless she's being divine, receiving wahi, that go and do this, it is blasphemous to even suggest there is a connection between her and Abraham, to start off with. Secondly, Abel Salo, at least read a bit of history, before you make these dumb objections. Abraham's father ran it was his shop of idols. Abraham used to work in his dad's shop. It was those idols he breaks. Okay, he gets them together and smashes them. They were in his own dad's shop. They weren't in your dad's shop. They weren't in... so this lady didn't go to her own dad's shop and start breaking her dad's property. In the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, his father is the key idol. He makes and sells idols, trades in idols. And he makes them, has a little a workshop where he makes them. And that is where Ibrahim alayhi salam is left in charge. And when they've gone, what he does is he smashes them. So he doesn't actually break into people's homes or go into other people's temples and smash their idols. So just to correct that point. So first of all, he was a prophet. Secondly, he was, so it's not about, he just came, whimsical kind of decision. Secondly, it was his own dad's personal property. And you may say, well, he annoyed the people by doing it, but it was not their property that he smashed. It was his family business. And thirdly, thirdly, this lady who comes in, as an example, on the back of her abaya, she has some kind of like some animation, some drawing, some kind of cartoon or something. On the back of her abaya, you can see it if you go online and see the thing. If she's got such a problem with pictures, then why is she donning that around and in her own house? Everywhere she goes, I mean, that's her own thing by her own choice. So this is as dumb gets, people. So, yeah, I just thought, look, I'd share that. Right, now, can I use VPN to enable Cash App? I don't know what the hell Cash App is. Right, so, right, Mufti, is it okay to call my dog Pete in Islam? Frank Zappa. Yeah, it's okay. You can call your, dog Pete, I guess. I don't know why that he's repeating that so many times. I don't know. What's going on? Did I miss let me check. I think I may have missed Zeba G. Shukran for much love for the super chat, but कोई जरूरत नहीं थी पर शुक्रन people. वक्त माया है. वाह वाह वाह. Huzaifa, Wajid, you're doing it. Much love for the super chat. And Ishaq Subi, Ijma, question mark. The worst Muslim better than the best kafir? Is the worst Muslim better than the best kafir? Of course not. ये कौन सी hierarchy है? Or shall I ask whose dad made that hierarchy whilst he was bored in quarantine? And don't say Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. I couldn't care less if he said it. Look, people, we are not. I'm gonna break some news to you guys here. So because we are not God's favorite children. Okay, I'm just breaking that to you. The belief that we are somehow God's favorite people. That's exactly what it is. It's stupid. Right? So we are not God's favorite people. And this claim is a dumb claim. It is made by many Muslims. It's made by people of all faiths. Christians, Jewish people, God's favorite children. Muslims start to think, acha, they are God's favorite children. God has got us. I mean, I do believe God has got us in the sense that he's watching over us and taking care of us. But I believe he's doing that with everyone. Now, the fact that you worship him is, testament to your commitment and devotion to God, not to his somehow obligated favor upon you. It doesn't work in that way. So I just want to be correct, make things clear there. Muslims seem to think that, like the way Christians say, if you embrace Jesus Christ as your savior, it doesn't matter how much of it. You could be a murderer, commit war crimes against humanity. You could be a rapist. You could be the worst, some evil psychopath, serial killer. You could be a pedophile. You could be just asfalus safilin, the lowest of the low. And they have this assumption that, but if you say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, or if you pray your salah, then you are somehow amongst the elite of humanity. I don't know what connection or what kind of communication you're receiving from God. I got bad news for you. Though that's not coming from God. Maybe the devil, but not God. So human beings are based on their actions. Okay. Iman is unquestionably a great action to show devotion to God. But to be fair, other people show it too. Christians show devotion. Jewish people show devotion. Other people do that as well. And that hence Allah says in the Quran that they will be from الَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِئِينَ, and all these people. It's not just Muslims, Allah mentions. And the verse we mentioned previously about the Ayah Safiya, that there's that you have sawami'un wa bi'un, all these different places, wa masajid, and masajid as well, mosques, but you have monasteries and synagogues and temples. Yuzkaru fi ismullahi kathiran, that the name of Allah is glorified in them all. So we have to snap out of this attitude. But there's a problem, you see, because the problem is when people start to think like this, they feel, well, why am I being a Muslim then? Why am I being a Muslim? Why am I being a Muslim? If it's like that, then, why am I being a Muslim? Cha. This is where the verse of the Quran fits perfectly. No, not the one about the muttaqeen. The one that yamunnuna alayka and aslamu. That Allah says to the Prophet that, hey, check these people out. they think they're doing a favor onto you by embracing Islam. That, Allah says, but balillahu yamunna alaykum an hadakum lil Islam. If Allah has guided you to Islam, that is Allah's favor to you. You're not doing no favor to God. He doesn't owe you anything. You need to get out of this attitude of like, well, why should I then worship if other people are also being, if I'm not God's favorite child. We need to outgrow this attitude. Okay, so that's what I would say. Adam Ali is saying he watched the interview with Bushra. He didn't appreciate it. Okay, fair enough. Female poets. When are we going to hear a poem by any female poets? I did just 2 weeks ago. I had a poem up here by one of my favorite current time female poets, Yasra Rizvi. I'm absolutely a fan of her, enamored by her words and her thoughts. So she has many poems. I will share more of her stuff in the future. Which reminds me, un momento. That reminds me, people, where's the poem for today? Allah. Hi. People, I'd like to take this time out to pay tribute to Rahat Indori Sahib. Rahimahullahu rahmatan wasi'ah. That, a poet who really was a legend. Somebody born and raised in India, Indori. He traveled the world. He had an Islamic education and also a secular one as well. He'd done a PhD in Urdu and was a lecturer and professor of Urdu for, I believe, a considerable while. And then he just kind of dedicated himself to poetry. And he had an enchanting style about him. He passed away this last week, I believe at 70 years of age. He initially fell ill with coronavirus and then died of a heart attack whilst in hospital. But an amazing person. I'll share just if I can. Hi. 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 Blind people in the queue. Vah, people, vah. You know what it is? I have a soft spot for poets in my heart. I feel that they are in the Muslim world, they are amongst the last bastion of free thought and a compassion for humanity combined. Honestly, I don't feel that there's, in the Muslim world, the clergy are, they're not even a waste of space. They are a cancer that is malignant and it's at its final levels. I mean, they are to Islam what pancreatic cancer would be to people. But poets, they are a breath of fresh air. They all often speak for humanity. They try to enlighten people towards compassion, in Muslim countries, that is. Because in the West, I suppose people can speak anyway and you don't have that intimidation. But in the Muslim world, it's not. I don't think it's easy. So, and we'll speak a bit about that later on today, because with this whole incident of some Pakistani actress, and now the clergy have gone mad. Nothing new there, but yeah, Sabah Qamar and what's going on with her. But yeah, I wanted to share that. There was a poem, since this last week also saw Independence Day for Pakistan and India. So, much felicidades and great blessings and tidings to anybody that was celebrating that. To me, these things are, just history, political. They happened, so. But there's a poem of Rahat Indori Sahib that I want to share on that. That where he says, Agar khilaf hai hone do, jaan thodi hai. That he says, Agar khilaf hai hone do, jaan thodi hai. Like, if you disagree with someone, and these are life lessons. If you disagree with someone, so what? It's not like life is at stake. ये सब धुआं है, कोई आसमां थोड़ी है. Says this, it's just all smoke. This isn't the sky you're talking about. You're talking about just smoke at the end of the day. लगेगी आग तो आएंगे घर कई जद में. यहाँ पे सिर्फ हमारा मकान थोड़ी है. He says that if a fire breaks out, in many directions, like the damage will spread in all directions. It's not like it's just our residents in this neighborhood. मैं जानता हूं कि दुश्मन भी कम नहीं, लेकिन हमारी तरह हथेली पे जान थोड़ी है. He says, I know, I accept that the enemy, the adversary, is not underskilled. We don't underestimate them. He says, but he's not prepared to risk his life like us either. Meaning that there is a passion that we have which is unparalleled. हमारे मुंह से जो निकले वही सदाकत है, हमारे मुंह में तुम्हारी जुबान थोड़ी है. He says that when we speak the words of truth. We're not like you. After, it's not your tongue by which we speak. जो आज साहिब मसनद है कल नहीं होंगे, किरायादार हैं जाती मकान थोड़ी है. That people you see today will be gone tomorrow. You should see these people as tenants, not as landowners. And then he has this, in light of all these politics that were going on, these right-wing fascism that was rising in India. He says, Sabhi ka khoon hai shamil yahan ki mitti mein. That everybody's blood contributes to the soil of this land. Hindustan he says that किसी के बाप का हिंदुस्तान थोड़ी है. Says India doesn't belong to anyone's dad. It's not. But yeah, I want to pay a tribute to him. He was an amazing person and inspiration. And I advise people like this that can understand poetry to develop an interest in it. It will improve the way you view life and the world. Right, let's move on, people. What's going down? Right. Mufti Sahib, were you an RE teacher? I was an RE teacher. I taught RE for many years. I taught Arabic. I taught... those were the good old days, when you didn't have to... when you just taught freely. You're like, who cares about... See, I'm not... me and institutionalization don't gel well. You see, I like to do a job with passion, but I don't like these kind of rigid structures. You see, so yeah, but alhamdulillah, I left that ages. I left teaching probably it was in 2013 now, so it's been almost about 7 years. Yeah, your video sound is low. Okay, I don't think this sound is low. Right, so what is going on? A rebel, yeah, I remember those days. I'm going to say it now and I'll get in trouble, you see. People will be like, "Acha, is that what he used to do?" I was one of those that, I can't be bothered with this kind of stuff. I'm all about teaching people, you see. I want to teach. I taught people well. I taught people with a passion when I did. I mean, sometimes bureaucracy got in the way, but I wasn't about you got to mark this like this, and you got to give this kind of this, and you got to follow this assessment style like this, and you got to make reports over here and reports over there. I'd be like, acha, 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 acha. This would be my reports. Acha, acha, acha. That was pretty much sums up my attitude to bureaucracy. Absolutely, honestly. But it was an awesome time, though. We had a great laugh. And taught people, I'll have you know that because I was an examiner for RE for about 4 or 5 years, I examined for GCSE RE. I knew that was because of that and my skill of how exams work. My students in RE, obviously I don't examine them, but every single student would pass, unquestionably. Because, it doesn't matter what the game is. You need to know how to pass. I would be like, don't worry about it, people. You're going to pass. I'm going to make sure you pass. Speaking of exams, there's been a scandal, people. A scandal. So, in the UK, because of coronavirus, A-level students couldn't do their exams, but the government, lo and behold, the Messiah, Boris Johnson, said, look, don't worry, we got this. And his sidekick, Hancock, the man they call the Duracell Bunny, they said, look, we've got this. What we're going to do is we will give out the predicted grades. People thought, chalo, ye bhi sahi hai. Bueno es bueno es bueno. So they thought that's good. Then, in order to, one of the suggestions was, should the teachers give out the predicted grades because they know their students? No. They said if you do that, there could be corruption. They could favor their pupils. Fair point. They said, we don't want anybody landing in a position in university or a profession that they're not entitled to and thereby endangering people in the future. Chalo, ye bhi sahi hai. It's like that works too. So what they did is they came up with a formula. They looked at Einstein and thought, E equals mc squared. Acha, E equals mc squared. They applied that. They got Newton's laws, then they got some, from Maxwell, and then they got the, the Dirac equation, and then they got all of these, and what they did, they said, okay, the way we're going to work it out, we're going to do this, that, and then we're going to throw in the postcode, and the postcode will also impact the grades, because what is the expectation of, let's say, B8 in Alum Rock, which is Birmingham, Alum Rock? Those of you that don't know Alum Rock, you're quite fortunate. Alum Rock is basically Pakistan in Birmingham, but it's that part of, it's rural Pakistan. It's not even just Pakistan, it's rural. Inni, what that like that, Inni? You do like that, Inni? What? Don't take that, bro. Cut me. It's the place where people come when they want to interview like an absolute specimen. They say, we need a specimen. So when they look at an area like B8 and they say, well, what are the average standard expectations from B8? So I don't know. Is it an E? Is it a D? They go, so they go, is it a D? So what they will do is just base it on the postcode. So many students got absolutely downgraded. Students who were expecting an A didn't get an A because their postcode didn't deem them to be entitled to an A. And this hit, especially, it hard hit underprivileged, working class, these kind of, especially ethnic minorities and any working class communities who live in postcodes that are just working class areas. They're not like middle class. And what it did is it gave a boost to people who lived in nice areas, upper middle class areas, or posh, or went to private school, because people where the private schools are established, those people usually live in very well-to-do areas. So they, even if they were looking at a B, they ended up getting an A. Wah, dunya hai bhai, dunya. This is the politics of all of this is going on, and now they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And so Keir Starmer has presented that the people be entitled to appeal, and the government has to fork the bill for their appeal. Anyway, I think the whole thing was so dumb. All they should have just done is gone with their mock exams and allowed the teachers to have some input. Or worst case, allow them to retake the exam next year or something. Or they had to do something. They've got to come up. But to do with this, postcode is the dumbest thing. It's just like Einstein. This is why, Boris Johnson, Bojo, is who he is. Right, so, Irfan Nagy. Let me just check what's, have I missed any? I haven't missed any super chats. Nope, that's fine. Here's one, right. There it is. Alright, Irfan Nagy. Hi, Mufti. I was wondering if you could give a brief historical explanation of the context of Surah Al-Fil. Thanks for all you do. Shukran, Irfan. Much love. Dearly appreciated. I've already got a tafsir of this. It's in a clip. It's on YouTube. So if you search for... I think if you just search the keywords of either Surah Fil or Ababil, if you look for the words Ababil, it will come up. Now, what this was is the incident is to do with a legend that existed in Mecca, that Abraha, the Aksumite king who'd come over from Ethiopia, Abyssinia had come over, Habasha, and he had kind of taken over the southern Arabian kingdom, which was known as the Aksumite, or the Aksum, the kingdoms of Aksum. And he'd taken over, and then what he was doing is he was expanding north, and maybe taking back booty, or take... Yeah, Bihajkar, you can't use these words nowadays. So maybe he was just going to expand on war spoils, or So he goes as far, he goes to places like Ta'if, which isn't too far from Mecca. Now, when he's in Ta'if, he hears that there is another place called Mecca, but Mecca was a very insignificant settlement compared to the Hijaz. It was not a major settlement of Arabia. So he didn't know where Mecca is. He just, like, he heard from some people, by the way, since you're, because Abraha himself was a Christian, I believe. So now, when he was in Ta'if, he obviously, they had like a Kaaba thing there as well. I believe the Ta'if one was dedicated to, if I'm correct, I believe it was to Uzza. But they had this big block in Ta'if as well. So they tell him that there's this, worship place not too far from here. So he doesn't know where it is. So he makes a plan that I will go there and destroy it. And that's where he is setting up his armies. But he's got elephants, and there's a settlement in Ta'if. But whilst this is happening, the elephants and that kind of the whole cavalry that he's brought with him, they are disturbing the local habitat of Ta'if. Ta'if has all this natural habitat, you see, and what it's doing is it's impacting the birds, the trees, all this, the presence of elephants. It's disturbing them, and from here, these particular small birds that I do mention in my clip, which ones they most likely were, the ababil in English. What they do is they build nests with these little kind of pellets. They kind of use that even today to kind of make their nests. Now they, because of the disturbance, are dropping them. And it's from here that you get an infestation of smallpox. And that infects the soldiers. So by the time Abraha does decide to leave, his army is not in a good state, and he then asks, he doesn't know where Mecca is, and he finds someone called Abu Rigal, who he pays, and he tells him, well, Mecca's in this direction. So as they're getting ready to go off, his army, many of them completely, they've developed all these boils, and they start to kind of like collapse, and he feels that something is cursed, the whole thing, because his army are just dying around him. So he retreats, and just retreats altogether, just about with his life. That is the story of Al-Fil. Okay. When Allah says, تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ, that they were as though it was an eaten, kind of corn or eaten crops. The way you see the corn kind of being eaten up, that's what they look like with these boils. They didn't actually reach Mecca. And the famous statement of that they say that was said in Mecca by the grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that lil bayti rabbun yahmi, that the Bayt has a Lord who will protect it. I personally feel that he may have said this when he heard that Abraha is in Ta'if and he's making plans to come. Not that he said this to Abraha, because the story later develops into Abraha must have reached Mecca and then he says it to him. I don't believe that that's what happened. That's my take on that. Okay. Hope that helps. Right, Shamro's thoughts on the A-level controversy. Yep, I've just covered that. Muhammad Ali, were you dating the head teacher? When I was out of school? You nutty. No, I was not dating the head teacher. In different schools where I was, on many occasions, they were men. And it's not quite, I know quite swing in that direction, So, right. Heados. Mufti, what's your thoughts on Liaqat Zaman? He says he disagrees with you on many things. What's your views of him? Liaqat. Oh, Mufti Liaqat Sahib. Right, yeah. I like Mufti Liaqat. I think he's in his own way a great person. Not, you see, I don't like necessarily the Deobandi way of thinking, because the Deobandi way of thinking is just a cult. Okay. It's a very close-minded cult behavior. There's nothing enlightened about it. There's a lot of knowledge there, don't get me wrong. Like, they memorize things and, do everything, and according to section A, this is, but it's all a cult. And you're not allowed to ever disagree. You're not allowed to do this. One must abide by the cult's rules and laws at all time. That said, Mufti Liaqat is actually, to some extent, a bit of a rebel in his own sect, if you like. So he has challenged. He has the courage to do things on social media, and he's been actually within his own circles named and shamed by the Deobandis, who have hated on him. They've tried to compromise his job. They've tried to, contact. He works for, I know, with Sheikh Zahir As-Sufa. They've tried to say, how can he be on social media? He used to do social media kind of Q&As where he wouldn't wear his hat sometimes. So people started saying, how dare he not have a hat on? And all of this kind of stuff. So they cause him a lot of stress, and he is very chilled out. And I know that, this is what I have a lot of respect for him as an imam, as a mufti. I respect him. And he's somebody who, despite me being very different to him on many views, as far as I'm aware, he would be very respectful still. He's somebody that I'm sure, obviously, I'm in my own kind of things and he's doing his own things. But if, like, let's say, for example, if we were to say, I know, let's sit down, have a meal, I don't think, as far as I'm aware, he would be more, he wouldn't object. He would be happy to kind of socialize, to kind of sit, chill, talk, even if he disagrees with you. He has that maturity, and I really respect that about him. So, yeah, that's my views on him. Right, no volume on the vids. Oh, that's a shame. Right, so, right. Please check your Facebook messages. Acha. Let me just switch off from the live I'm on and go check your Facebook messages. अच्छा, हम का वो समझे हुए हैं का? So what's going down? Wow, you follow from America. Macau, I don't know what that's on about. Mufti, no audio on the videos. No way. ¿Qué es eso? You know what? I'm going to check why that isn't, because it doesn't make any sense. It should be. I can see. Let me see. It seems to be picking it up. Fine. There seems to be movement on the equalizers. So I don't know why you're saying that any video you play has no volume. Kapil, shukran. Can you bring Sheikh Zahir Mahmood on Mindtrap? I would love to, but I don't think Sheikh Zahir would come on Mindtrap, to be honest with you. I think, you see, my understanding is that I think Sheikh Zahir Saab, who I respect, I have respect for him, and it's saying it's just low. Right, so the yeah, with Sheikh Zahir, I feel that he for what, I mean, there may be multiple reasons. Maybe because he personally disagrees with me. I also feel it's more so because of like a political decision that, let's say, because he runs an institute and he's part of the Deobandi. See, Deobandis are a cult at the end of the day. And there's a lot of pressure for him to boycott anybody who they say you must boycott. So I know in the past he had a lot of pressure to kind of openly write a Facebook post against me, which he refused to do. And then in the end, he just said, look, stop trying to bully me about writing a post against, Mufti Abu Layth. I don't meet him anyway. And so I feel that's the thing. Now, because of that, unfortunately, I haven't really met Sheikh Zahir for years now. I haven't met him. And one could just be because we're busy and we don't really cross paths anymore. But I feel that there is somewhat of a conscious decision as well on Sheikh Zahir's part that he doesn't really want to meet me because he's more worried about like the backlash that he would get. Like, let's say if he came and met me, or we met at a place and we chilled out, and let's say somebody puts it on Instagram or they put it on, now he would get a lot of slack and people would tell him off, and and he's not allowed to be hanging around with deviants. And so I think it's in his world it's easier to just, it's not worth it, like, because it's not like I'm a close friend anyway. So why should he kind of go out of his way and jeopardize, stick his neck out by hanging out or something? I mean, I think, to be fair, I think it's petty, it's childish. I think abiding by these politics is childish. I think the whole thing is very it's disappointing. It's not what you expect from community imams, leaders. But I mean, it is what it is. These, it's not just Sheikh Zahir. All of them, they abide so much by their kind of group politics. They're not like allowed to think out of the box. They don't have permission. And if they do, their own teachers will kind of boycott them imminently. And then they will, they won't be able to give speeches in any of their mosques. They won't be able to. And remember, these people are not people who built their platform on social media. They're people who built their platforms in masjids. So for them, if the masjids get taken away from them, then they're like, well, they don't have independent followings. They only have followings who are Deobandis from that cult. So, if you disappoint the cult, there goes your bread and butter. So this is what I always advise people, don't, when you're growing, don't try to outgrow and diversify your audience. It may be slower, but it will be a more stable kind of audience you have in the end. Kapil says we need a lot of sex, not sects. Right, now, people avoid the bad language in the comments. Right. Right, so what is going on? Ask a... Is this what you think my mind trap is? Seriously, do you think it's that? Like, my mind trap is to allow people to grow in their thinking, to kind of see discussions. Sometimes, look, I can't always promise what a particular session will turn out like, but it's just to engage with people on intellectual kind of thoughts. Mufti, yaar, why these sheikhs don't like you? So, come on, do you really have to ask that question? So, yeah, why they don't like me? Look at me. This is why they don't like me. No, I mean, look, I give these people an easy excuse because of the way I look. But truth be told, even if I didn't look like this, they would still reject me. It's like, look, Sheikh Zahir, for example, we were speaking about, or any Deobandi scholar, he's not allowed to publicly like any Brilvi scholar. He could never praise publicly a Brilvi scholar, like truly praise him or kind of hang out with him. And they are accepted in their communities. And you, okay, I might look like a rebel, but you could take somebody like Sheikh Asrar. You know, he definitely fits the part of an imam, you know, hermetic imam, like quite a hermit actually. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with, you could take any of the kind of Sufi Brilvi imams, and they are respected in their communities, long beards, wear the imamas. But the Deobandis ain't allowed to hang out with them, and vice versa. They're not allowed to hang out with the Deobandis either. Because Rajniti hai baba, gundagardi hai. Gundagardi. Oi says, Mufti, can you give us the source of Da'if Hadith Wale Wabio video that you once talked about? The source, the video is my reply to Abu Ibrahim. If you go to my refutation playlist, and it's the one where I respond to Abu Ibrahim. Will you debate Sam Shamoun? Right, Smarks killed Red. Look, I'm not interested in debates. I am interested in discussions. Okay. Now, I haven't seen that much, but I just saw that day, I was on a mind trap. You know, my voice is constantly kind of cracking in these past. God. So, I got a couple of comments saying, look, will you go on David Wood's live? So I thought, why not? Let's go. So I went on his live, and I thought I could just join in, and I said something, and he had some Mufti on there who looked a bit like Zakir Naik. I don't know who he was. It wasn't Zakir Naik though. And he had this guy Sam Shamoun. Now, I've never heard of Sam Shamoun before that, but I saw him there, and he's like, oh, Mufti Abu Layth. And David Wood saw my comment and said, well, look, Mufti, you know, you can't just come on. It's a pre-scheduled kind of thing. Maybe in the future we could do something. And he was very respectful, to be fair. And I, you know, from that perspective, I respect that. And Sam was like, I offer him to a debate, you know, I'll debate him, you know, this one, I debate this one, I challenge him, you know. You know, this kind of loud debating style. You know, this is not my style, right? I am totally not interested in this kind of mullah, or this kind of chest thumping, I'm gonna prove Christianity. But if somebody wants an intelligent conversation, I will have an intelligent conversation with them. I'm more than happy. You see, to me, I'm not interested with these people. Like their discussion is, from what I gathered, their discussion is how Islam, you know, the whole thing about Islam and Christianity, Trinity and Tawheed. See, I would say, my point is, look, to them, forget about Islam, because obviously to you, Islam is wrong anyway. I could understand if you were to argue all religions are wrong. I could understand where you're coming from, because you'd actually make, you know, at least you'd have consistency in your argument. But if you're going to say that, well, Islam is just wrong, but really Christianity is right, then, okay, I take it the objective to this is you're trying to say, why should we all today be Christians? Cool. You know, if there's an intelligent discussion on that, if somebody can convince me how this narrative of why Christianity makes sense of God sending his son to redeem people from this evil world that God created by sending his son, let's say himself manifesting as the avatar, getting beaten up by people, getting tortured allegedly, because really God still ain't getting tortured, but these people, but the avatar is, and then dying to redeem the sins of mankind, but yet mankind is carry on sinning. And that's God's great plan. Like, this is the God who created the cosmos and set mathematics into everything, and did, you know, with all this like majestic sophistication, this was his great plan for salvation. That what we're going to do is, right, humans have really screwed this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be born. and I will go and get battered. When I felt a bit of pain, that chalo theek hai, I've suffered on your behalf. Now you can rest assured that you guys are saved, but you're saved with the condition so long as you say, I'm the one that saved you. Oh God. If that's God's intelligence, then I think we've got a problem, people. So, in all honesty, if that's what these people want to present, that because I'm not interested in speaking about Islam with these people. Like to them, Islam is a waste of time. And to me, the argument would make sense if they are saying all religions are a waste of time. It would make sense because you're trying to say, well, there's superstition or there's this or there's that. But to say one religion, and especially when the religions are related, it's like to say Christianity is dumb, but Judaism is so awesome. Or Islam is dumb, but Christianity is so awesome. This is so stupid because it's fundamentally just very similar kind of things with different ideas. And Christianity has so many kind of, the way it's presented today and for centuries, has so many kind of like dumbed down perspectives to it, like this, that this is God's great plan to save people. This, this kind of like sadomasochistic plan of, I got to get beat up. And what is the purpose behind this is so people know I suffered. But did God suffer? No, but acha, notanki, drama queen. Oh God. Doing it with the plans. So this is why people leave Christianity in floodloads, because it doesn't make any sense, So, but I'm not saying none of Christianity makes sense, just to be clear. There's many things in Christianity that make absolute sense, but they will be just as in all religions. But there's these kind of fundamental truths that they claim which are problematic. So if somebody wanted an intelligent conversation with me to prove this to me, because this is the biggest claim of Christianity, it rests on this bedrock, that all it rests on is the fact that God sent himself as his own son, manifested as an avatar to save mankind by getting beat up and thereby suffering, the avatar suffering, not God, but this somehow, in a sadomasochistic way, now forgave everybody's sins. It doesn't matter. So, you could be a serial killer, pedophile, murderer, psychopath, but just before dying, you say, I accept Jesus Christ, got battered because of me, and there you go. Bless you. You're on your way to paradise. If somebody can explain that to me, I'm more than happy to engage in that dialogue. Okay, so other than that, I'm not interested in debating Bukhari said this said this said that. These people don't really believe in Islam anyway, and that isn't the purpose for these people having these discussions. And what's interesting is somebody sent me a clip of David Wood and Apostate Prophet, and David Wood said that and this was public, I mean it's on YouTube, he said that, look, I like people like Muhammad Hijab, this kind of chest thumping, angry giant Muslim who is angry and intimidating and bullying, this thug, because he said that I really wish that people like that become the representatives of Islam, because they're so easy to show as a kind of villain to Christians and to other people that look. And he says in that clip, it's on YouTube, he's having a discussion with Apostate Prophet. He says that the likes of he said people like Dr. Shabir Ali and this kind, they're no good because they kind of very diplomatic and polite, and they don't get angry. They don't he says that they don't represent that angry Muslim. So arguing with them just makes you look like the baddie, or it makes them look like decent people. Even if you don't look like the baddie, but they look like a decent person. So his point was, we should pray and hope. Sorry, not pray, but we should hope that the likes of Ali Dawah, the likes of Muhammad Hijab, reach the pinnacle and become representative, absolutely, of mainstream Islam, because he said that they will destroy Islam from within. And he gave the example of Yasir Qadi. He said Yasir Qadi was one of these, and he has done more damage to Islam in recent times than all atheists, ex-Muslims, Christians have done collectively. So, yeah, and this is their strategy, people. And look, I personally, respect David Woods personally. I haven't watched so many of his things. From what I have seen of him, he's been very respectful to me. I respect him for that. I understand. Look, he's a Christian. He wants to present his worldview. I ain't gonna hate on him for that. More power to you. I mean, you believe in that, present it, absolutely. And I get it. That look, this is a game. Ultimately, it's a strategy. So the way you will take people out, everybody does that. I mean, that's it's it's all fair, I guess, in in these kind of things. So I have that respect. I understand what you're trying to do. But these kind of angry, let's get into a debate and prove Islam is the word of, this is a waste of time, What am I going to prove to someone? But yeah, I'm happy for them to explain to me. I would take great pleasure in learning. Right, so, that reminds me. I want to speak about Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah and the entanglement. This entanglement. This, like Jada and the entanglement with the ex-Muslim. But before we get to that, following on from this discussion of, you've got David Woods, what he was saying. This is an example of Muhammad Hijab. This is him speaking to people who are having doubts. I take it you can hear the sound. Can you guys hear the volume? The equalizer seems to be showing it as good. Volume is low again. Somebody says the volume is low again. Wait there. Let me see. What? The volume's low again. Doesn't make any sense, yaar. Media source. That's high. Video sound is very low. That's no good. See, this hasn't happened before. Let me see. Quickly. If I can pick something. Video capture. Alert box. Media source. If I go on to, let me just check. Un momento. If I be a man. Be a man. I don't get it why that is. I'm trying to see. Let me see. Browser source. Ah, right. Okay. Is it something to do with this? I've never done that. Control audio via. Okay, let's check if this helps. I don't know if you guys can. I don't know if you guys can. What's going on with the sound today? Via the mic, you guys are hearing. That's a shame because I've got a few clips to show you. No sound. Okay. This one not nice, my friend. This one. Let me switch this off. Yeah, man.
Some people have been calling me and giving me some emails. Brother, I have doubts. What doubts, man? What embarrassment is that? Why you have doubts? Why? So tell me now. You find any manuscript in the whole wide world, where you find me a singular narration which goes against the Quran? What does it do for me? Nothing. If the had possibly was abrogated, possibly. Khalas. What? What's the problem? I don't understand. Why you have doubts? What kind of man are you anyway? What kind of woman are you? What kind of Muslim are you? What kind of Muslim are you? Let's be honest about the situation. Putting doubts in that one's heart and that one's mind and this one's soul. Quiet, man. This is all in our tradition. We have a chain of narration. Yes, we have a chain of narration. Tell me now how an Orientalist has any argument against the Quran, the preservation of Quran.
So this is
Orientalist, you have not read anything.
Muhammad Hijab telling people how to deal with doubts.
Where do you get your information from with me? I'm your teacher, boy. And all of you people, I'm your teacher to Orientalists. Wallahi, we are your teachers. And you know it. Don't pretend to be our teacher. You have nothing on us. You know nothing. Don't ever come and step up to us, wallahi. All of you. Listening to me, I'm shaking. You need to use the toilet now. I know you do. Now listen carefully. Listen carefully, and I want you to all listen. I know the enemies of Islam are listening to me. Let me take my glasses off. If you saw what I look like now, believe me, a lot of the enemies of Islam would be very scared. Just like very scared. Many of them would be very scared because you know
what if I?
When we come with the truth and the haqq and all of the details like this, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Listen carefully. To all those people out there, the Christians, how dare you talk about preservation? It actually makes me angry. Listen to what he said. Not a stupid running around the street, speak his Quran talking nonsense. No chain. Don't speak to me. Don't speak about Islam. Don't open your mouth about Islam again. Wallahi, don't open your mouth. Don't ever open your mouth. You have no chain. And a lot of you are losing faith, and you should. I know the Christians are on this track. Lose faith. I tell you, lose faith. It's better for you. Because it's a nonsense. You have no chain of narration. No chain. And you're comparing with all audacity because of the ignorance of the Muslim community and the weakness of the leaders. You are comparing your method of preservation with us. You have deceived and self-deluded. Dunning-Kruger effect, you jokers, you imbeciles. How dare you talk about the Quran, you imbecilic individuals. Sahaba were going to beat each other up because they didn't know. Is this one saying it? Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. And these weak Muslims in the West, sending me emails and this, I'm losing my faith and I'm a Hafiz, I'm losing, get the hell out. You were never a strong believer in the first place, you weakling. You're a weakling because you don't know your tradition. You're sitting there watching Netflix and you don't read the books of Islam. That's why you are where you are. That's why you are where you are, you imbecile. It's our fault.
Wow. You see, so that's wow. So that's Muhammad Hijab. I mean, this whole angry, why are you doubting in Islam? You weakling. Listen, you little boy. You were never a true Muslim to begin with. It's better that you just lose your iman. What is happening to Muhammad Hijab? I honestly don't know because, you see, Muhammad Hijab is an intelligent person. He's definitely intelligent. You can't. It's not like he's dumb. I mean, there's other people who are just dumb, but he's not. He's intelligent. Um, he's obviously very capable. He memorizes things. He learns things. But yeah, what is this? What is going on? There's some serious anger issues here, man. There's a lot of unresolved. What the hell was that about? That you're having doubts. You're having doubts. Boy, you never had faith, boy. It's better for you to lose your faith. Look, faith, doubt is an integral part of faith. Okay. Don't, buy this. Let me tell you something, people. It is counterintuitive. The assumption that Iman works like this. People assume Iman works from, like you start from frailty and you end up with this certainty. Like you start with this kind of weakness, doubt, skepticism, questions, and you end up with this yaqeen, like, there's nothing. And it's actually the other way round. You see, what will happen is people will often have a very certain attitude towards things because they've not questioned it. As they start to question, they will then get riddled with doubts, questions. Now they will, through this journey, they will resolve many questions. But what they will end up with will be a much more agile entity, but ironically more stable. It will be because if it doesn't waver with the kind of the kind of doubts that push it, make it sway, if it doesn't sway, it will just collapse. That is how faith works. So people who often have this amazing apparent certainty, the way that I've never had doubts, and it's as more clear to me than the day, and these people may be either just super exceptional human beings, or most likely they are people who just never truly questioned what they believe. And most people that do question will always have some doubts. But that's okay to have doubts. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that Ibrahim ﷺ had doubts. وَنَحْنُ أَوْلَى بِالشَّكِّ مِنْهُ. He said that for us to have doubts, we are more deserving than Abraham. And the companions, you would claim that we doubt things sometimes in certain ways that we can't say them to you. We have certain thoughts at times. And the Prophet said, ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. That is real Iman, real faith. Everything else is just a facade. So you don't need to really be so angry or insecure at people having doubts and questions. And so that's the so that's I just want to share that clip. That was hilarious. But there was on that note, there was also with Ali Dawah. You see, because these people, because they're becoming the voice pieces of Islam, and they're massively popular. I mean, people give Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab so much, they'll give them the absolute time of day. And these people, even though they're not, like they have, by the way, they get targeted, surprisingly. I don't used to know this, but they get targeted by Salafis who are targeting them. It's crazy politics going on. So, but these people are not, I suppose, in some views as wacko as some Salafis, but they're not people who are behind the voice of reason. So they're not about the voice of reason either, at all. That's not on the agenda. So they will stand stubbornly against certain things and they will just promote them. And an example of that was this clip of if I if you see here, look, this is an example. Can you guys can you see that? I take it you can hear now. I did do something with the sound. Somebody said we cannot hear the videos. Can you not hear? Okay, these videos, I did change the setting just a moment ago. Like, look at this. This is real world stuff, people. Here, Ali Dawa is having a discussion about the age of consent, and he gives the example of being happy to marry his own daughter off. And I apologize for this being very disturbing, because this is very disturbing. I don't know how you check whether your daughter is sexually mature for marriage. I don't even know what that question means, but
Islamically, she can, as a father, I have a right to say no. But if she wants to, at that age, because like I said before, in Islam we don't have an age. We don't say 9, 8, 4, 5, 15, 20. Mentally, sexually, so one second. You know what? That's fair. Because in this country, imagine somebody is not mentally sexually fit already, but at 16, somebody wants to have sex with her. You know what I'm trying to say?
this is the nonsense, people. This is the nonsense. Okay, sound of Ali Dawa is too low. Somebody's saying. I did alter something with the settings, by the way, so it's difficult now to. People are saying it's fine; they can hear it. Right now, you see, in the beginning of that clip, if you saw the beginning, they asked this person in Hyde Park that whether he would have sex with a 9-year-old. And he responds by saying, oh, if you would marry and have sex. People are saying they still can't hear the sound in the videos. Okay, that's... So let me see, if you can hear this, right? So this is the... Right now, this... So that part where the person says that this is what, would you with a 9-year... He says not with a 6, but with a 9-year-old. I mean, these people, do you know... I don't, honestly, words fail me. And this is the problem. People saying, right, I don't know, right, there's mixed things about whether they can hear it or not. So I'm just leaving it with that you can hear it. Right now, there seems to be very clearly mixed perspectives on what they, whether they're just absolute nuts, or are they just so stubbornly defending a ruling that they believe they have to defend, which is about the age of Aisha, which, by the way, all they have to do is just intelligently realize and just denounce it, they know there's no way that's actually genuine. But this is the problem. It comes back to that cult. You see, even though I said earlier on they get targeted by some Salafis, they are still Wahhabis themselves, Salafis, and they are part of a certain structure and order. If they go against that, they will lose that support from Saudi Arabia and these different, the general Wahhabi wing of supporters. They will lose them if they go against that. So they're not prepared to compromise. And then what you get is this reactionary bravado that it doesn't matter. Well, so what? Yes, we do it. We are Muslims, and what? Yeah, so the problem is that these people become representative of mainstream Islam. People will have no qualms in supporting somebody, and they will even find excuses for them. Like they will say, well, it doesn't matter, he said this, it's okay, chalo, it doesn't matter. So God help us. I mean, that is a huge problem, really. I was just, yeah, so recently I did, I can't remember where I put right, so, and what happened was recently there's been a further entanglement between these guys and some ex-Muslims. So what's been happening is Muhammad Hijab has been going back and forth with apostate prophet who he calls Apis on Twitter. Now, I don't really use Twitter much. Maybe I should, but I mean, I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it as much. But I did see one or two of the things, and it went, back, forth. And what Muhammad Hijab is doing is he's just saying, look, since you don't believe in objective morality, would it be okay if, he says, if your husband said to you, and this is what he's doing, is he's asking questions to Apis, apostate prophet, his wife. So his wife is apparently also on Twitter, who's active, and according to them, she's an Islamophobe. I don't even know who she is, but he's addressing her, saying, "I'd like to ask you an important question, an ethical question. If your husband was to ask you that he would like, since he doesn't have moral objectivity, if he was to say he would like to have sexual relationship with his own brother, would you A, agree, B, he comes up with these things like B, would you join in, or C, would you recommend a different family member, e.g. his dad?" This is so dumb. But then, you see, now to be fair, right, if he just did one or two of these things, and you'd think, well, right, but he has been going on non-stop. And I think he's still going on till today. So, right now, a couple of days ago, I went onto Twitter, somebody sent it to me, and I saw his clip. I saw this particular post Muhammad Hijab had made. Now, I want to clarify this. I had made a comment on that post. Later on, I saw how it could be misconstrued because Muhammad Hijab continued to write so many more tweets after that. So I kind of removed my comment. But what I was saying is that he made a point where Muhammad Hijab said, and I have got this. In fact, let me bring it up for you guys, if I can. Right, here it is. Right, so here it is. Now, Muhammad Hijab says, look, since the uneducated online apostate is happy to insult the Prophet Muhammad on his physical appearance in the name of freedom of speech, and is triggered at the prospect of someone insulting his loved one in the same way, any other way, why do you throw stones? Now, I want to say to this that, look, that in many ways, at this particular point of Muhammad Hijab, I agree that point is technically a fair point. I don't agree with this style. I do not endorse what Muhammad Hijab is doing. I do not support that methodology. In fact, I was just a few minutes ago showing his video clip that how, what, this is such a silly approach. It is so, this shouting, chest beating, having no, listen boy, you got no, this angry approach is so removed from the Prophet's character and from Islam. And I condemn that kind of approach because I feel that just damages Islam. Now, and Ali Dawa and his thing, which I clearly condemn. But there is a point here which I accept that, look, if there have been people like AP, Apostate Prophet, have had a very kind of insulting attitude towards Islam. Now, not all ex-Muslims are like that. Like, there's some who are incredibly pleasant, generally. Like, they might be occasionally sarcastic, like Vidu Vids. So, he openly doesn't believe in Islam. He will question things, very polite, diplomatic, or just a well-mannered person. He's not like he doesn't come across in any kind of pernicious or malignant kind of way. He's just comes across as a genuine person who doesn't accept Islam, but he's happy to have a conversation with you about it. Now, Apostate Prophet, however, and some ex-Muslims can come across as just insulting Islam. And some Islamophobes, they will just insult and they will say things. So here, in that particular tweet, Muhammad Hijab shares a little, some post where they are describing the Prophet as being ugly and saying that, look, he's got some kind of skin tag and ha 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 ha, like what an ugly person. And then he's convincing people that this is some kind of a sign of prophethood. Now, I just want to say that, look, to all ex-Muslims, to all people who are Islam critics or anybody, that, look, keep it intellectual. That's what I would advise. I mean, you don't need to listen to my advice. I don't mean anything. My words don't mean anything to you. But this is my advice. Keep it intelligent. You know why? Because the audience who you are criticizing, most of them are just emotional anyway. Like, they're not a rational audience, most of them. So the moment you turn this into an insult slinging thing, they will take it 10 times lower. So you can't then kind of start saying, oh, why are you insulting me? Because if you're happy to insult, now that's not my style. Look, I do satirize, okay? I do take the mick out of things. Maybe occasionally one could say I have mocked appearances. I do give names which are funny to people and I do stuff like that. Now, my thing is usually the objective is to show why this is silly. But along the way, I will satirize it. I will, take the mick out of what's being said. And then by doing so, I forfeit the right that if they were to take the mick out of what I do, or take the mick out of my kind of things, or my views, and take the mick out of me in that sense, I forfeit the right to throw a sissy fit and be all like, oh, this is like, how dare you kind of like do this to me, because I'm doing it. I have to kind of just own that look, when I do things, I kind of I do a masala segment sometimes, I call Sheikh Asrar my beloved, and I do all of this. Now, if he starts saying something about Mufti and starts, like he did, like Mufti Majin, he used to say this kind of like Majin is somebody that's like a joker or something in Arabic, or a kind of like a jester like that in the olden days, somebody that's useless, let's say. Now, when he says, oh, this Mufti Majin, now I can't be offended by that, because look, this works both ways. I have to own that, fair enough. I mean, it doesn't bother me that he says that, but if it did bother me, tough luck. Because I'm doing that as well. I'm saying, oh, Sheikh Asrar, Sahib or Rashidiyya, and I'm doing all these kind of things. So I can't play that game. I can't play that card of just getting all sensitive. So when these ex-Muslims or these Islamophobes or Islam critics or whoever they are, they criticize Islam, if they sink to the level of just making it emotional about insults, then, this is what's going to happen. Now, right, so I would say that, all right, we've just had a comment here by Apostate Prophet saying, you have a false impression of me, Mufti. I don't just insult Muhammad, I criticize Islam, but engage in relevant mockery. They only harass people. I can clarify if you want to talk. Sure, I mean, I will talk. That's and shukran for coming on, and shukran for the super chat. Look, all I'm saying is there have been things that have been said. Like, I just saw this particular comment where he had shared something saying, look at the Prophet, this skin thing, this ugly thing, or whatever it is. And my point is, look, it doesn't offend me. I'm going to be honest with you. A person could say whatever they want to say. To me, it doesn't offend me. But I know that the crowd of Muslims that are following you guys, following Apostate Prophet, they are the kind that, to them, that is just clearly you're just insulting. Now, they will insult back. Now, that was my point where I said that, look, okay, it's not my thing, it's not my style, but that's a fair point. That if you want to insult, if you want to throw stones, but if you live in glass houses, stones, glass houses, that paradigm. That said, I did see that Muhammad Hijab kind of just wouldn't stop. It's like there's no stop button. And I logged in yesterday night, actually, and he had been going on up until yesterday. Probably still going on now. Like his wife and Apostate Prophet's wife and I don't know, some other people's wives, Abdullah Samir's wife, I think. And Abdullah Samir is also, as far as my interaction with him, is a very, like a very gentle person. From my interaction with him, from what I've seen of his videos, he doesn't come across as somebody trying to even be funny about Islam. He doesn't even, I haven't watched all his videos or anything, so in case somebody says, look, here's a video, but from what I've seen, but in saying, look, here's Abdullah Samir's wife, or here's this, and I find this absolutely unacceptable. So I did remove that comment because it might give a misunderstanding that I'm supporting all of this. I'm not. But I would say that, look, these people are like this, and they don't have a stop, and they thrive off this. Unfortunately, they thrive off this kind of like this mudslinging. So I would always say that keep things, if possible, as intellectual as possible. Trying to show, look, if you said to me, look, this is what Islam says, that doesn't make any sense. Isn't that silly? Isn't that dumb to say something like this? Because wouldn't you blah, 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 blah. I think fair play, because look, at the end of the day, this is what you are trying to do, is show your worldview and showing that, look, isn't that silly? And it is my job as a Muslim to answer you, not to insult you. Because by insulting you, I just prove that Islam is dumb then. Or, even though I don't prove it, but I prove that Muslims are dumb. Because if your claim is, hey, isn't Islam silly for saying this, and aren't you, for thereby just being silly for following something silly? Now, if I just react by trying to say, oh, let me curse your wife, and let me curse your mum, and let me curse your this, then I'm just endorsing that, which, is equally, it just proves the point. So I do agree that these people are out of character. Not out of character, sorry, they're out of order. I don't agree with them, but I did agree with that one point, although I think, to be fair, I think Muhammad Hijab, even if he didn't make that point, he does have a very kind of like a bully approach to him. It doesn't, and that was even from that clip I played about Muslims asking him that they have doubts. He has a very kind of like a shouting, angry, like I'll shout at you and I'll tell you off and intimidate you kind of approach. So it's clear that it doesn't really matter whether you're following a methodology. It's just he's out there to kind of, that angry, aggressive approach. So I mean, that was my point. I know I couldn't clarify this. I did try on Twitter to go back and forth. Some people start saying, "Oh, see, Mufti's a closet closet follower of Muhammad Hijab, and all Muslims are the same. They're all extremists, and they're all." And I was like, I do not agree at all, and I do condemn what he's doing. But my simple point was that, look, if you engage in insults, just remember that, like, I give an example. My interactions with several people have always been respectful, with people who are Islam critics mostly, and they've been mostly respectful with me. So, but there was a time, and I mentioned this on my Monday nights at the time, there was this burning of the Quran incident in Norway. And I did mention that, look, someone said at the time that, I'm so angry with what they're doing, the Muslims, as a reaction, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip the pages of the Quran on a live stream, and I'm going to smoke it as a joint. Live stream this. Now, look, like, that is, like, you have to and I said this at that time, you have to understand that, you see, when you say things like this, because normally we wouldn't do that with any, like, look, I've got a book here. This is just a book in Spanish, just to learn Spanish. Yeah, it's not like it's written by Juan Fernandez, excellent teacher, by the way, if you're trying to study Spanish. But if I was to say, hey, Juan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come live stream, and I'm going to rip pages out of your book, and I'm going to smoke them as a joint. Or even if I said this about Harry Potter, it would sound very like very kind of like Neanderthal attitude and a caveman attitude. Now, what would you think of scripture? Like, sacred scripture to people. Look, I, as a Muslim, do not believe in the Guru Granth Sahib of Sikhs. I would never, in my wildest dreams, dare to even think that I would disrespect the Guru Granth Sahib, even though I don't believe in him, because I know, look how sacred they treat it. Like, they don't even, they're not even allowed to touch the Guru Granth Sahib. Generally, only the, those people who are authorized to do so can touch it and read it. The common people can't even touch it. It's that holy. It's like serious stuff. When I said today I used to teach RE. I remember Professor Dr. Michael Grimmett was our professor, one of our professors. And he said, when we were doing RE, talking about symbols, and he said, well, there was a point where, he gave us this lecture on hot stuff. And he said, and he brought out this box which had religious artifacts in it. And he said, when you're going to teach religion in school, he said, this stuff is hot stuff. Like the symbols, like, always treat them with respect. Like, if you're going to take out the Jewish thing, if you're going to take out, some Hindu statues, if you're going to take out the Quran, if you're going to take out the Torah, he said that, look, regardless of whether there is an ummah. He never used that word though, but there is an ummah that holds that to be sacred. So, at the very least, when you're going to teach about it or talk about it, I'm not saying people need to be this sacred towards everything, but what I'm saying is they definitely shouldn't be committing sacrilege. There's the opposite, But I would be personally, because that's how I was taught, I would treat these things very, with immense respect, even if I did not believe in them, because I know that that's what Islam would teach me. That that these people have so much respect for it. You have respect for it. You understand? And this is like the hadith. And when the Jewish lady was going, the Prophet stood up out of sanctity. And they said it's a woman, and it's a Jewish woman, represented Judaism. And the Prophet said, is it not a nafs? Is it not a soul of God? And teaching us that we need to show respect. So my point is that, look, just be careful, because, look, when you're going to deal with, And I get that sometimes you can't avoid it because you're gonna obviously you're criticizing Islam, so you're gonna be criticizing certain things which are sacred, and I get that, and I'm not against criticizing, but I'm just saying that be careful because the people you're dealing with are, many of them, not all of them, but many amongst them are on proper jungly mode. They go by. I don't know if you're familiar with the term jungly. Yeah, they don't know any bounds, and you give them one excuse, they just gonna open the floodgates, and you'll be like, you won't be able to kind of like stop it then. But I do hope that Muhammad Hijab kind of backs off and stops these kind of insults to people's wives and things like this. And yeah, and it makes, it just really does what David Wood said, that, it does them proud by showing that, look, this is how Muslim leaders are. Yeah. Cool, people. Right. And somebody said, Mufti Abu Layth, you're being a hypocrite because you block people who take the mick out of you. Yeah, there's no harm in blocking. I don't. Why is that being a hypocrite? Look, just because I mick out of people doesn't mean I want to hear them take the mick or carry on insulting me. But sure, they have the right to do it. It doesn't mean I have to go out of my way to listen to it. Freedom, your free thinking rules. Acha. You thought just because they have the right to do it, I need to listen to it all the time. Were you dropped as a child on your head? Your free thinking. Right, so let's move on, people. Let's move on. Right. Mufti, please check your Facebook messages, please. Abhi kahan se yaar? How the hell do I check my Facebook messages here? You want me to log out of this? Is that what you want? Right, so Abu Layth for president. You're doing it, people. You're doing it. If I become president, even though the UK doesn't have a president, but TK. Guys, going from scandal to scandal. What the hell is going on here? What is the difference between a prophet and a messenger? That's an interesting question because there seems to be a distinction. Now, people flip them on their heads. Some people say that a prophet is somebody, and I seem to go with this, but some people have asked. I would feel that the term prophet was generic and messenger was specific. Some people flip it the other way. It's called, in Arabic, they say about umum khusus. Okay, so you have something which is am, which is generic, and khususum min wajh. So it has some specificity. So it's like saying, every engineer is a university graduate, but not every university graduate is an engineer. So in that sense, like you have every Nabi would be a Rasul, but not every Rasul. No, sorry, what am I saying? Every Rasul is a Nabi, but not every Nabi is a Rasul. But I don't think these terms are so strictly. I think they're just guidelines. And by messenger, it would be somebody who had a risala, a message. That message may have been substantially different to the prophets of that region where he was sent or she was sent. So I would believe that Maryam alayhi salam was a prophet. I would believe that the sister of Moses was a prophet. People like this in the Quran that Allah speaks to, inspires like that, I would think they were prophets. But they wouldn't have been messengers that brought any kind of substantial message in that sense. But I don't think that there's, and some people flip it the other way. So, but I don't think it's a big deal. Somebody sent a super chat. Pietro de Prasa, you're doing it, Pietro. All right. Peter, thoughts on Ibn Mas'ud reciting Fatiha? Ibn Mas'ud, rejecting Fatiha. I thought, how do I respond to that? Thoughts on him reciting? Right, yeah. Thoughts on Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an rejecting Fatiha. I'm not so sure he rejected Fatiha. I've not heard of that, really, to be honest. I've heard, do you mean like the Mu'awwidhatayn is popular? There's different interpretations on why some companions rejected certain verses. They thought that they were du'as the Prophet was teaching and not necessarily the Quran itself. Now, to be fair, Dr. Shazad Salim has a very good chapter dedicated to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an's Mus'haf, and that which was found, and for example, in Ibn Nadim's Fahrist and in other places, and the discrepancies he speaks about in all the surahs, and of Ubay ibn Ka'ab and these different people, and what is the outcome. And his conclusion, he kind of comes to the understanding that maybe it's not so clear that he does reject it in that sense, but maybe he did question certain things, and that's so his point was that it appears, because when you look at all the ahadith and the different transmissions and the different kind of manuscripts and documentation, so when people are writing about like what his Mus'haf had, so there's disagreements, but they do show that there's discrepancies between his Mus'haf and the Mus'haf of other people. But did he completely reject the Mu'awwidhatayn? So even though that is popularized, he shows and argues that it doesn't seem to stand the test of, it doesn't seem to carry the burden of proof with it. Some people have made this claim, but where is it? And he seems to argue that some indications of certain people who knew Ibn Mas'ud and what they transmit from him is that he's questioning the qul, because qul is speak, and when it's saying qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, that should this just be a'udhu bi rabbil falaq as opposed to qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, and that when he rejects the two quls in that place, does qul here mean the word or does it mean the surah? Like, so some people say alhamdulillah. So in a hadith it mentions that when a person begins salah and says alhamdulillah, recites alhamdulillah, here alhamdulillah is denoting the surah alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, but it's a word which denotes the entire surah. So now it's not called Surah Alhamdulillah, but if I said, and then he recites Alhamdulillah, so if people say, and then he recites the Qul, which is Qul. So the question being, does he reject the Qul, the two Quls, or does he reject the whole Surah? So what Dr. Shazad is arguing in his book is that he is rejecting just the qul, the letter, the words, not the entire surah. And it's a very fascinating, in-depth discussion that he has in his book. Do get hold of it if you can. It's called a critical, a critical study on the compilation of the Quran or something. But Dr. Shazad Salim, you can, and it is quite interesting, definitely. अब की बार मुफ्ती की सरकार फकीर आदमी है, झोला उठाकर चल पड़ेंगे. वाह मोदी जी वाह. Right, so 9-year-old was engaged before marriage. Yeah, look, I've got a detailed video on the age of Aisha. Aisha radiallahu anha was in her late teens. She was not, I repeat, not in her early ages. And this was most likely made up by Hisham, the the kind of great nephew. Is that how we? Yeah, because Urwa is her nephew, and then this is the son of Urwa. Yeah, Hisham. It's most likely made up by Hisham, who makes it up in Iraq when he goes back to Iraq because of the kind of Shia narrative in Iraq at the time. And there are a lot of things that are made up, and it's quite interesting. Um, because the Shia at the time, they have, you see, they obviously very anti Aisha radiallahu anha, because of the stance that she takes against Ali and many things. You know, there's many other things as well, but that's one of the key things. They also believe that she always held a grudge against Ali, and which I don't know, may or may not be true. Maybe she didn't. You know, she felt something, which I think if that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that because that's just a human thing. You know, because what they're saying is that but I don't believe that's true, though, to be fair. You know, recently, my thought paradigm, let me share some of my thoughts with you. They've really been kind of challenged a lot, you know, and I've been thinking back and forth. I've been discussing with certain professors, certain people, Islamic scholars, and amongst them, Ustada, female scholar, Ustada Yasmin Amin, incredibly an amazing intellectual. She's Egyptian and German. I think she's also at times in the UK or in America at times. But she's English speaking as well. So I know she's in between America and Europe um and of somewhat of a senior age, as in her 50s. An incredibly enlightened figure, honestly. I just been amazed in my conversations with her. Been really so thought provoking, and I've been looking up so many of these things. But but yeah, I mean, coming back, I'll come to this in just a moment. Some of these discussions, but coming back to that about Hisham, you see, Hisham when he goes to Kufa, he sees all of this that's going on with against Aisha, and Aisha lends legitimacy to him as well because Aisha is she kind of indirectly rubber stamps the Zubayrid dynasty or the Zubayrid perspective, which is because you have to remember that Zubayr is you know he's going to be by Zubayr. It's not so much about Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, but his son Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who is the nephew because his mother is the sister Asma of Aisha. Now he establishes a rulership. He sets up his khilafah in Mecca. He rivals Bani Umayyah and is successful for the most part until he's unfortunately crushed by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf in 71 Hijri. Now, but he is successful prior to that, and he is trying to spread his whole narrative, his perspective, and part of what would support that, and even after, you have to remember that he did rule over a portion of Iraq. He sent his brother to Basra, Mus'ab, and over various parts of the Muslim world. They gave more allegiance to him than they did to the Umayyads until they kind of conquered back. Now, even then, there were people amongst them. And then you have to remember there's a clash because Kufa is a hotbed of the Shia. Yeah. Now, you have the Umayyad narrative, which is very anti Shia. And then you have the Shia narrative, which is very anti Bani Umayyah. Absolutely. Like, they're both bitter, hateful. Then you do have a third narrative on history, and that is the Zubayrid narrative. You see, because the Zubayr coming down from Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and that kind of thing is neither Shi'i, neither Umayyad. And they are dignified and respected within Islamic sources. So when the Abbasids come into power in 131 Hijri, you see, for them to endorse, what narratives do they endorse? Because if I become now the main guy and I have to endorse some versions of history, who do I endorse? Do I endorse the Umayyad? I can't endorse the Umayyad because if I'm the Abbasid, let's say I'm Mansur, I ain't going to support the Umayyad because I'm anti them. Do I support the Shia narrative? Because the Abbasids were part of the Shia, but the problem is if I go full out on the Shia narrative, then the Fatimiyin and the Alawiyin are more deserving of it than me, the Abbasiyin. Because if I start saying it's all about the family of the Prophet, the lineage of the Prophet, the holy bloodline, Sang Riyal, the Holy Grail, this is what it's about, the holy, then people will say, but wait a minute, you're from the offspring of Abbas. These people are from the offspring of Ali and from Fatima. They are more deserving based on your narrative of history. So what is a slightly neutral narrative? That is the Zubayrid narrative. And so and this is why I feel the Zubayrid narrative also gains more credence. That's one of the reasons. So the Sunnis allow that to prosper. With that comes many things, you see. Part of it will come to endorse Aisha radiallahu anha as really, because that's to kind of get back at the Shia. But it's also, it has another layer to it that it endorses the Zubayrid people as well. So when Hisham narrates about Aisha, in some way he's kind of endorsing himself, but he's also helping the Abbasids and other people and the Sunnis with a more neutral mainstream narrative. Now, and he's kind of slamming back at the Shia. So all of a sudden the hadith about Aisha being the most virtuous, and this was a fascinating discussion with Ustada Yasmin, and she really got me thinking actually. So she was telling me in a discussion that who was from amongst the most favorite wives of the Prophet. And I thought, well, okay, that's an interesting question. Not really. I mean, presumably people say Aisha, but in her studies, you see, this thing that it's actually not Aisha, she feels. And I have to say, after discussing with her, I am now inclined to that understanding, that it most likely appears to be Salama. Now, Salama radiallahu anha seems to kind of disappear from the Muslim heritage. Like she doesn't disappear entirely, but she's eclipsed. But when you look at the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she seems to be one of those people who the Prophet often valued immensely for her judgment. She seems to be like a political advisor. So on all of the battles, the Prophet always took her with him. At the Sulh of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet consults her. Whenever there was a difficult thing, the Prophet consults her and takes her advice. And she seems to be obviously quite mature in age. She seems to be somebody who the Prophet is very fond of, in terms, like he really, especially of her opinion in things. And he seems to dearly love her. And I was just contemplating some of these narrations, and it does seem to be like that actually. And it seems that, you see, an interesting thing is if you look at the manaqib, like in Bukhari, where there's a certain hadith which present what the virtues of the wives individually. Now, all the virtues of Aisha seem to be equally the virtues of Salama. I think there's 17 or something. But they all seem to be listed about Salama. And the interesting thing is that actually, not that I know it's fluid about verses of the Quran, what they were revealed for, but there were several verses that were revealed for Salama. Unlike Aisha radiallahu anha, there were verses about her, but not, more about just exonerating her. Let's say if we're going with that, but that's another interesting twist I want to come to. There are some verses that people say it's about Aisha, but they're critical towards Aisha radiallahu anha. Now, I was viewing this and I was thinking, that is actually quite interesting. And it does seem that there's like this certain hadith where Aisha is very critical of Salma because of this, and I think she kind of tries to criticize her, and the Prophet kind of tells Aisha like don't. But this was very fascinating, and I feel that what happens is many of the hadith, not many, but especially several, are fabricated to really bolster the position of Aisha. And that's double fold. I mean, part of it is to come back at the Shia, hit back at them. And then part of it is to endorse this Zubayrid kind of narrative. So there's a hadith, for example, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, it doesn't sound like anything the Prophet would say. And it's going through Hisham from Urwa, from Aisha, that the Prophet said this, that he said, that he says, hey, if a man had to lead his flock to a pasture, and he had a choice between a pasture that had been eaten from and a pasture that hadn't, like with a tree, like let's say there's some pasture and that hasn't been eaten from and that has, which should he go to? And then Aisha says, I think she says, I don't know. She says, you tell me. So she either says it or the Prophet endorses it or says it that, yeah, obviously the one that hasn't been eaten from. And then the Prophet says, oh, and that's you. And then she says, meaning that I was, because I was the virgin. And you think, like, what the? There's no way on earth that was a correct Sahih hadith. Like, that just was not. You just know that, come on, like, that just does not, that doesn't make any sense that the Prophet would have said something like that. So, but you can see why this may have been introduced, though. So, to kind of, one, like I said, to hit back at the Shia, and then this claim that the Shia were making that Aisha was, she was like lewd and of bad character and all these things, and she was involved with, Jubayr ibn Mut'im before because she was looking forward to get married, and they implying that she was already having sexual relations with him prior to getting married during her engagement. This is right. So to retaliate against that, what Hisham does is pushes her age back to just being a little child. And these numbers that he comes up with of 3 and 9, they're not just totally arbitrary. 6 and 9. They're actually, I feel that, this is part of my discussions, I've come to learn that there's certain research done on Zoroastrian pre-Islamic culture and their marriages, and there was a particular marriage that some Zoroastrians, one type of marriage that Zoroastrians did, and remember, this is in Iraq. This is the people who embrace Islam when during the Abbasid era. These are the same people as like their grandfathers and stuff. That their culture was that the girl, when she was betrothed, or when she was taken, given in marriage at the age of 6. But what would happen is they would take her to a temple, Zoroastrian temple, leave her there for 3 years to learn rituals and all these kind of things and be purified. And at the age of 9, she would be collected by the husband. Now, this 6 and 9 had a cultural existence. So, and these Zoroastrians continue to exist right past Hisham's time, because you've got, in the time of Imam Malik, him being asked about them still doing their other marriage where they marry their siblings and stuff, and that which was still going on even in Imam Malik's time, and he's in Hisham's time, and junior to him, lives on for several decades after him. So what Hisham does is he sees a practice that is common, like it's in the narrative. 6 and 9 is done by this community. So he just takes this, runs with this narrative of, that, yeah, no, she was, and I don't think he runs with it in one go. I think he begins by just saying she's, first of all, just a little girl. And then he just comes up with maybe she was around 9, maybe she was, and then this story keeps developing. And all of his students are Iraqi. All the people who transmit this are Iraqi at the base level. And they are just projecting, they're going back through him, and other people are just fabricating their chains just to support this story, this narrative of, one, against the Shia, and two, endorse Hisham and the Zubayrid kind of perspective. And what's interesting is Abu Mansur, Mansur the Al-Abbasi, the Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, when he comes to Hajj, he gives a kind of an endowment, like he gives a grant to select scholars, imams of the time, and only a certain amount. And guess who? And people don't list their names, but they do list one name of one scholar who is selected for this grant. That is Hisham. And then what happens after that? Hisham goes back to Iraq. And he did have a close tie with Mansur, because when he dies, Mansur reads his janazah. So I would feel that this is what is going on there, this whole thing. I'm sorry for just getting a bit kind of just carrying on, but I feel that this was quite interesting. And just on a side note, this Hadithul Ifk thing, I actually, and this was part of the discussion with Ustada Yasmin as well, is that I'm inclined to feel that this is actually, sorry, it's just I find my voice kind of cracking. I need some medical intervention. Right, so this Hadithul Ifk thing, I don't think was to do with Aisha radiallahu anha. Maybe people later on projected it onto Aisha, and it served also the Sunni narrative to say it is about Aisha, because then Allah has exonerated her in the Quran. So it serves that narrative as well. But I feel that after speaking to Ustad, at this stage, I'm still researching it, but that I do see sense that it was actually about Maria al-Qibtiyya, Maria, the wife of the Prophet, who had the son. You see, because Ibrahim is the son of the Prophet, who is through Maria, and the Prophet doesn't have any other sons through the other current wives that at that time. Now doesn't have any children with them, so he has them with Khadija, but not with those wives. So Maria, she is sidelined by a lot of the wives, and this propaganda continues to the extent that they remove her name. Like, people don't like her. This is why Muslims often have mistaken her as a slave of the Prophet, where she was his wife, and the student of Imam Malik lists her as his wife, and she used to live on the outskirts of Medina. But what happens is, in the Prophet's lifetime, there is a rumor that people spread that she has an affair with, there's a person who comes with her. He's a relative of hers. His name was, I think, Mikhail or something like this. Now, later on it transpires that he's actually a eunuch. He doesn't have the male reproductory organs. But at that time, people didn't know, but they used to always see them two together. So they spread this rumor that they're having an affair. Now, this was important. Why? Because the paternity of the child had huge ramifications. After all, it's the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I do agree that it had much more ramifications than just a wife being implicated in an affair, which, okay, has some ramifications on the reputation of the Prophet, but it doesn't, like, it's not like at most the Prophet would just divorce her. Like, this is like the most that would happen is, let's just say in that situation, is the Prophet is to divorce his wife. I mean, it's not the Prophet's fault at the end of the day if one of his wives, let's say, if they had done something, not that they did, but let's say. So yes, it does impact his reputation and it's seen as an insult, but there's no action, like there's no greater consequence than the reputation side and the divorce. But if there was a child involved, there would be huge ramifications. And because especially at that time with the Arabs, who were so about paternity. So yeah, so I am quite inclined and I'm researching this, so I'll let you guys know how my research goes on this. Right, cool. Let's move on, people. We gotta wrap this up. Somebody said, oh right, I haven't even spoken about the charity. Somebody said about the Nanaji show. I've got actually, let me see. No, not that. Can you guys hear this? This was, I did a collab with Can you guys hear this? This there you go, people. That was I did a little collab there with the Nanaji kind of show. Subtitles too fast, yeah, but you can check it out. I will put it up on my YouTube thing, but it's on his Insta, Nanaji. So cool. Somebody mentioned it, so I thought, yeah, I've got it here. Actually, I'll share it. Right, so what's going down, people? What's going? Oh, we got to speak about. God damn, I haven't spoken about the pen. Speaking of controversies, a new controversy, people. You've got. Right, no, not that. This penny appeal at the center of investigation into safeguarding issues at orphanages. People, what is going on? Seriously. You know, there's been an outrage. Recently, we've had, you'll get, this is the second, in recent weeks, there's one in Luton as well. Crisis aid or something, that was under investigation. All these scams, embezzlement, I think something like just under, I don't know, something between, I think, 200 to 800,000 pounds. Wow, that's being, dodgy over there in Luton. Then you've got this palaver here going on, right? They're being under investigation. You've got, if we take a look, let's see. They made a statement that, look, we've become aware of the alleged. So basically what's happening is in Gambia, there's been certain things going on, sexual kind of abuse with children, exploiting vulnerable people, utterly disgusting. In addition to, I believe, my sources tell me that there's been a huge scandal about money as well. Allahu a'lam. But that's what I've heard, that there's been embezzlement issues as well. But they've reported themselves to the Charity Commission. They've had to, I guess. But this was some of the reaction there. Momo chimes in. Momo's from Gambia, so you can imagine that this is not only generally something that is hits home, but it's incredibly personal. So, and very well said that, look, all these things, sexual abuse, exploiting children, inequality, illegally operating, these kind of things, this is what was deemed by the Gambian. You've got the authorities in the investigation so far. So, and if we take a look at some of these people had commented saying, like, how dare you say alleged, too little too late, what the hell is going on? So, boy, I mean, what is going on, people? Honestly, charities, money corrupts. And the problem with, I suppose, the whole Muslim scene is we are so far behind in keeping things up to scratch, in auditing and stuff like this. And it's don't get me wrong, I'm terrible at things like trying to keep things all structured and documented, but here, you see, if you're going to do something like that, you have no choice but to. See, you can't be taking people's money and then doing things like this, you see, because there needs to be, this is just utterly unacceptable. And, this like, oh my God, now we're going to call into an inquiry. Obviously, this is going to shake the foundations of people, because they're giving money so you can help people in Gambia. You can help little, like if you're going to show photos of little children starving or, being disheveled, and let's help them. And now people are flying over there and they're sexually abusing them. It's like, for God's sake, what the hell? They were better off without your help. And then to make matters worse, people have paid you to do that. Not to do that, but to go there. And so, yeah, the level of betrayal is just on so many levels. So first and foremost, may Allah keep those children or victims, whoever, vulnerable people, wherever they are, safe and sound. Ameen. May Allah protect them and make things easy for them. Ameen. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I believe is it Rizwan Hussein or something? Rizwan Khalid, I've forgotten now, but the founder of Penny Appeal. But they, this is not something light, and it needs, I don't know if these kind of things, if people can really, if it's even right for people to be able to come back from these things. That's a question, Allahu A'lam, and I guess time will tell. But one suggestion would be that, look, when people operate abroad, and I read this from a local charity making an announcement, Humanity Gives, on Facebook, and I thought that is an incredible point, where they said that, look, when working with children, it's always sensitive, and when working abroad, it's even more, because the opportunities for people to kind of, through stealth, sneak in and exploit are much larger than they are in the UK, because there's a lot more checks and balances here. So, one, people have to do the right checks, but two, it's difficult doing that in certain remote countries that don't have those facilities. So those countries themselves may not have, like these kind of DBS checks and their version of CRBs and, doing all these kind of things. They don't probably have that in some remote countries. So they gave a suggestion that rather than you going and opening your camp there, it may be better to actually collaborate with an existing agency that is indigenous to that land. So you help them in helping themselves. Because, you going over there, okay, you might not be able to tell. Like, fair enough, like they might say that, look, we don't know how to, I don't know what's going on in Gambia. I'm sitting here in Wakefield, in Yorkshire, or wherever it is, right? So, true, I mean, I wouldn't know. Like, how do I know what every single person is doing in, let's say, my business or something? But then, in that case, you have to work intelligently. Then don't take on that responsibility, but collect money, but collaborate with indigenous organizations in Gambia, in Nigeria, in Somalia, in Pakistan, in Burma, in people that are already there. You collaborate with them, you provide them the stuff, but they deal with it all because they are indigenous. They are more answerable to their people, to their governments, to their, they're not going to be kind of flashing a passport and coming in and sitting on a flight and going back. They know they live there. There will be consequences. So, yeah, so I think that was an amazing, suggestion. But yeah, may Allah protect these people. And, in all honesty, I've never, this has been a problem with a lot of, it's not just sexual exploitation thing, but just, I don't know, the element of trust, there's trust issues. I don't know, this is the problem. And I hear that charities have this offer that, I just heard this today. The charities have this deal that if you can get them 100K, they will give you 40K as a kickback. So if I could raise 100 grand from people to give to a charity, they will pay me 40 grand as a kickback, or between 30 to 40 grand. I don't know if I heard that today as true and certified. I think that's incredibly problematic. And it's not problematic in getting the kickback, you see, because even though that is problematic, but what's problematic, because they're going to say, well, at least we're 60 grand, we've got 60 grand to give now, where we had zero. What's problematic is the transparency. See, that's problematic. Because if I'm collecting charity and I show you a picture of some poor child, and you say, you know what, Mufti, I feel sorry for that child, here's £1,000. And then I say, mashallah, £400 of that are going to go to my luxury lifestyle. You see, that's the problem, because I think these things there needs to be a transparency level on highlighting that, look, a substantial amount is going, because I would have thought, I'm not an expert on these things, and people might say, well, you're not an expert, so what are you talking about? But I'm involved in other businesses, and I would have assumed that admin costs and working costs maybe between 15% to 25%. That's what I would have assumed, but I wouldn't have assumed that they would be 40%. That is a staggering amount, and I think there needs to be disclosure, because if a person's giving £5,000 or £10,000, they need to know that actually I've just paid this guy £4,000. Shabash, right? And maybe I need to spend that £4,000 on my own children. Because I need to be able to make a judgment call that maybe my kids are in need of money, but I'm so swayed by the emotions of seeing some kids suffering. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, give it to them. So, I don't know, this is why I just can't personally just ever get involved in these kind of things, because the responsibility is too burdensome, man. May Allah make things easy. That's all I can say. They need to stop with those images. Yeah, I agree with you. These kind of making people feel sorry and then, ripping people, all this. Ya salam, honestly. But yeah, let's see what happens. But there's apparently, like I mentioned, I heard there was another charity in Luton, Crisis Aid or Crisis, Muslim Crisis, I don't know, something like that. Crisis something in Luton. I heard they're being investigated just like a couple of weeks back because of embezzlement. And somewhere between 500,000 has just gone. And do you know how they're doing it? And this is how they're doing it, right? They're doing it like this, that they've got in-house, they kind of like, it's all kind of in-house outsourced. So what we're doing is I'm collecting charity from you. I've collected £10,000. Let's say I'm going to buy food sachets or something. I don't know, whatever it is. So this food sachet costs, let's say, £3,000. That's what it actually costs. But what I'm going to do is I have a middle company, which is actually still me. But I put it on my uncle, my chacha, my dada, my nana, my, Batija, my brother, my sister. I put it on anybody's name, my wife's name or somebody's name, my son's name or daughter's name. This is what they're doing. They're just putting it on a bunch of people's names. And then that company would sell that thing now to the charity for, like, let's say £10,000. But it's actually £3,000. So it's a legitimate invoice that the charity would receive for 10,000. They would pay 10,000, but now I've just made £7,000. And this is how it's kind of being done. And I feel, look, I get it, there's greed, and I get it. I'm not, I'm not trying to like bash down on human. But it comes back to that thing, you see, because if it's not even like, like a little thing. Like, these people go large, you see. They deal in the millions, and they deal with so many people, advertising. People sometimes who are struggling with money, and they're giving them money. You see, and that bothers. That is like a bit, that is sad. Because if people are struggling with money, but then they're giving it to you out of ikhlasun niyyah, that, mashallah, this is, and really out of £1, 70 pence is going into his pocket. Then it's this one not nice, my friend. This one, this one real bad. You should, because they deserve to spend it on their own family. That's what I would say. People, we've just had controversy upon controversy today. Whoa. Somebody said, Mufti, check the super chats. I'm just trying to check them. I can't see any. Nope. No puedo ver. Right, so I don't see him. Let me see. Actually, here I could probably. I think I've answered them all. Thoughts on Ibn Mas'ud. Listen to you. Would be happy to host and talk to you someday. Oh, well, that was apostate prophet. Thoughts on Ibn Mas'ud. Or why do you believe in Islam? I've answered that before, shukran, but let's get to a more interesting. Interesting. Right, so moving from scandal to scandal, we're now going to La. People, Kabul hai. Kabul hai, huh? This is a Pakistani actress. I didn't know too much about her, actually. I had to research. So, her name is Sabah Qamar. And Sabah Qamar, this one in controversy, let's see, where's the... I can't. Right, so what happens is, let's just bring up if there's a... Right, here she is, crying, and there's this guy with her, the co-star or director, I believe his name is Bilal, crying, asking people to forgive them. What is all of this about, mi gente? What is this all about? Now, let's go to... No, that's not what it's about. Here it is. So this is it, people. So her doing that twirl that you can see was inside Wazir Khan Mosque. And it's now, she's been accused of blasphemy and now charged at the courts.
सरदार मंजूर चांदियों ने दायर किया, जिस पर इन पर इल्जाम है कि इन्होंने मस्जिद वजीर खान ने जो है वो एक गाने की नक्शबंदी की, जिससे मस्जिद का तकद्दस जो है वो पामाल हुआ.
So you can see that, and this has triggered so many people. They've gone, what the hell? She did this spinning thing in the masjid. This was part of her trailer for this movie Kabul, and it's to do with, they do a nikah in that clip, she explains, and then they get up, and out of happiness, the husband kind of makes her do a twirl. And they said, and I think in the clip, there's music playing in the background, but they said when we did the clip, when we did the recording in the masjid, there was no music. She was just doing a twirl. This is edited later on for the trailer and so on. But people said, oh my God, you've got... Eddi vaddi gunda kar di. Oof. 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 This is Khadim Hussain Rizvi Sahib. Hi, hi, hi. Hi, hi, hi. You notice that political move? He's going to go there to pray Jummah. I tell you, don't underestimate Khadim Hussain Rizvi. I hope you guys can hear this, by the way. Right, so this you can see, people, what's happened. Khadim Hussain Rizvi Sahib has turned up saying, is that what the masjids are for? To make people dance? Huh? Ladkiyan nachane ke liye masjidon mein. And this guy is, oh my God. And you know, he has like this awe to him, you know, this robe. I have to say, you know, he... I don't mean to be raw, but, you know, for a disabled guy, because he's disabled, yeah, he can wreak havoc. I mean, this guy, he has such like a command with his voice, with his presence. You'd never imagine it, but he is good though. And then look, think about it. You have things like this going on in the masjid all the time. Khadim Hussain Saab may not agree with it, but he doesn't call them blasphemers. Ow. This is Sheikh Yaqubi Saab over here. Okay, that editing was already there. This is in Birmingham, in Gamkol Sharif. This is right here. You know, these Pakistani elders are like, what the hell is going on? Those Pakistani elders, you see, the Pakistani thing doesn't have this hadara, so they're like, what the hell? You see, this kind of stuff is always happening, yet, to be fair, even though, I don't know, maybe Khadim Hussain, Mullah Khadim Hussain Rizvi Saab does condemn that, but he won't be targeting these people. But he will target Sabah Qamar. He will target her. Like, she's actually been charged now because they've made such a big deal. But then you look at, like, I was so shocked to see. No. Yeah, I was so shocked to see this. This is a politician. Look at this. He's saying, if you want to kill these blasphemers on the street, do it. Look at this, off the record, Maro. Kill them off the record. Look at this, say that they just died in an accident. Kill them. I'm surprised. This guy is apparently part of PTI with Imran Khan. And you see, so my point is that what on earth is happening here? How can you have politicians, people of parliament, speaking like this? Like that, oh, you know, well, people off the record, Marlo. It's like, what the hell are you even on about? Like, how can you possibly ever condone something like that? And I hope that this, I don't know what's happened to this politician, but as far as I'm aware, he hasn't been taken to task, but he needs to be, because this creates a culture for people like Khadim Hussain Rizvi to openly, I mean, to be fair, he would probably do it anyway, but to kind of be out there saying, look at him evoking the emotive language, girls dancing, girls, and all the Sufis, these guys that were doing this palaver before. There's women in the background there as well, by the way. But, okay, he may say I disagree, but they don't target them. They don't kind of set out for them. And that's my point. So, I mean, you do get... So, Khadim Sahib... Look at the emotional language, though. Bap ka mulk hai. This is Pakistan, by the way. Kamal hai. This Wow. Kamal hai. That's Rizvi Saab. Kamal hai, yaar. He seriously is. He can make somebody emotional, you know. He has that skill to him. But yeah, guys. So it's been ever so. Yeah, the Imam Qazi is on the line. Yeah, and he, by the way, openly swears. He's one of those that. Oh, Dalio! Oh, Dalle! Oh, like he'd call people. Dalla is like a pimp. Oh, Dalla. Yeah. But, guys, let's wrap this up. If there's any quick questions, I can. Somebody's saying, can you comment on the Baha'i? Nah. Get him in the Paralympics. He would kill the Paralympics. I'm telling you. This is what would happen to the Olympics. He would kill it, kill it, this one. Right, no, that's coffee for the after party. Hell yeah, it needs to be some coffee. Hatun Tash, I don't know who that is. Somebody said Mufti versus Hatun Tash. What is that? Are on issues, but I did find that intriguing, the whole issue, discussing it with Ustada Yasmin about, this is Ustada Yasmin Amin, about about Salma being most likely the favorite wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I found that to be definitely very interesting, and she was and it is true that she was the political advisor. She was the one at all the the major events when the Prophet took advice from. She was the only wife that was constant. In the Prophet would often take two wives with him on a battle. She was always one. The other one varied, fluctuated, but she was static. Which goes to show that, it's quite interesting. I do see, I see some, but I don't think, look, these things people are not, look, this is just interesting. This isn't in a way, the problem is people become too sensitive. They think, oh my God, in no way is that to detract from Aisha radiallahu anha. I think she's absolutely amazing, and from, that mother of the believer status. But I don't think, the problem is that we have this institutionalized numbers. This is number one, this is number two, this is number three. People say, oh, Bakr is number one, Omar is number two, this is number this, blah, 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 blah. And if somebody says, well, what do you think about this? People go, oh my God, he must be a this, he must, I believe, if I'm correct, since Imam Qazi is on the, what is it? He's tuned in. I believe Imam Qazi would be inclined towards saying, well, giving preference to Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu an. Now, personally, I would see, I feel that there's, look, what people give preference to, it's entirely up to them. Many of the ulama of early Islam used to they would have they would say, I feel this person is better. I feel some people used to say that they were Zubayri. They used to feel Zubayr was the best. And some people, if a person has a take, they have a take. It's up to them. I don't see, some people have said, I know Sidi Iqbal, who's, I consider my own teacher, a dear friend. As far as I recall correctly, he says Fatima radiallahu anha is the best, number one. And some people have said there is no number one, there's just a collective. But I feel that these things are just, they're interesting if you want to talk about them, but they shouldn't become fighting issues. They shouldn't become issues like, oh my God, you know what, chuck him in this group and then pour boiling oil over him. Or, you know what, electrocute this one. Or I think people just need to kind of calm down a bit. Yeah. Cool. All right, so all the mods of I hate smart. I don't know what these questions are. Guys, let's wrap this up. As always, it's been awesome. Emmy, you're doing it. Malik's, I guess, Baqi follows him. Malik said Ali. Malik said, Imam Malik actually didn't say Sayyidina Ali, to be fair. He actually said, I don't know, I think Sidi Iqbal said to me, he said in a narration about Fatima, that I've not come across, but fair enough, that may be one. The other popular one is he said the usual just Abu Bakr and so on. But it doesn't, look, my point of saying it is that, look, it's a chill, I feel that these things are not dogma. They're not doctrine. You can teach them, but they're not, it's nothing to kind of get all, start thumping your chest. Mufti Sahib, please visit Germany. Absolutely, Rory, it would be a pleasure. Recently I've had a lot more people subscribing to me from Germany. It's quite interesting seeing that. Other than that, Peoples, was there anything I left out? No, I don't think so. Nope, that's definitely not the one. When you're pressing something and it's all right, that wasn't the one either, but okay. Guys, there it is, Patreon. I'm up on it. We did have our first group session with people that was gone. So there's going to be one group session a week. A month. Relax. I'm not that. One a month. And there is a tier where some people want a one-on-one. And I've got to be like, yaar, ye one-on-one kya hai? I'm used to multiples, multiples. So for them, I'm like, all right, chalo, they can subscribe to that tier. But these things are there. Check it out, my Patreon. You can feel free to, subscribe to. I will have. You see, it's only been this month, really. We've just started. It's only been a couple of weeks. There are plans on doing a lot more. There's going to be an angle of sharing certain voice notes as well. I mean, certain brief lessons as voice notes. That's one of the, just something that if I can do with ease, for example, without having to cause, without stress free. It's just like done within a few minutes. Cool, guys. Take very good care of yourselves. Any issues, do reach out to me. I'm going to put up my page. Like it, subscribe, click the notification bell. If you don't, God. Right, so there's nothing more I can say if you don't. I suppose we can go with the words. Well, Allah, Allah, Allah. I just remembered, you see, the words before. Jalib, a Pakistani poet who was quite revolutionary in what he stood for and was quite anti-authoritarian. And he says, he has this famous line where he says, Chale aaye hum un reh guzaron se jalib. Not Ghalib, Jalib. Right, that's his name. So he says, we have come from those paths, or we passed through those paths, Jalib. Chale aaye hum un reh guzaron se jalib. Magar hum wahan kalbo jaan chhod aaye. Yet we left our heart and life, our soul over there. He says, ye ejaz hai, that it is a miracle. Ye ejaz hai husne avaragi ka. Allah. This avaragi is like this kind of like where you're just a kind of rebel, or you're just like a wanderer without rules, without institutionalization, a bit loco in your own way. So he says, Ye ejaz hai husne avaragi ka, that it is a miracle of the beauty of that lifestyle. Jahan bhi gaye dastan chora. Wah, 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 wah. Says, wherever we went, we left behind a saga. Hi. People, with that, take very good care of yourselves. Salamullahi alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.